Hello everyone, myself MB Durgarav, working as assistant professor in the department of CSC. In this video, you will learn some of the interview questions which is presented in our operating system subject. Okay, so now the first one is what is an operating system? The definition of OS is operating system is an interface between the user and the computer hardware. So what the computer hardware contains? The computer hardware means it contains RAM, hard disk, some input output devices, some central processing unit. So all these hardware components to work with the help of one software, then that software is called as a operating system. So with the help of this operating system, which provides the communication to the user. So that's why the OS is an interface between the user and the computer hardware. Next one is what is the main purpose of an operating system? There are two main purposes of an operating system. The first one is it is designed to make sure that a computer system performs well by managing its computational activities. So how it manages? So there are different kinds of resources which will be presented in the system. The resources may be RAM, hard disk, or any kind of input output devices, or peripheral devices which are connected externally, or central processing unit. All these activities should be managed with the help of this operating system. Next one is it provides an environment for the development and execution of programs. So here the user is created their own programs. So if the user wants to execute some Python programs, and first of all they have to create the Python program, then that program will be executed with the help of this operating system. So if the user wants to execute any kind of some Java program or C program or C++ or what it may be. So different kinds of tasks which will be performed inside system with the help of this operating system. Okay, right? So I want to showcase one video. In that video, you have to clearly identify how the OS can perform the different tasks. Okay, so this is the video. So all of you please clearly view this video.
Computers are used for so many different tasks. Playing games, watching videos, running calculations, communicating and collaborating. Computers today are a mixture of different types of hardware and software. But there is one program that brings them all together, and that's the operating system. To consider what the operating system is, let's go back in time to the invention of digital computers. They could handle around 5,000 complex calculations per second. Impressive for the time, but today's supercomputers perform nearly 34 trillion calculations per second. Programs were written on punch cards, pieces of cardboard with holes. These were fed one at a time into the Central Processing Unit, or CPU, and enabled the earliest form of computer batch processing. In some cases, one person was in charge of making sure the cards were fed in correctly. Their job was to correct jams and schedule when the next program could be run. As computers became faster, they were able to process punch card tasks quicker than the cards could be fed in. There was another problem. Different computers' resources, that is, the components within them such as RAM and the devices attached to them, such as printers, were all different from one another. A programmer had to write very different types of programs specific to the machine it would be running on. Was it this card? Or that card? Oh no, it's all getting a bit complicated, isn't it? The solution was to write a brilliant piece of software called an operating system, or OS. The OS would take over the tasks common to many programs. Today, operating systems control the hardware of the computer. They manage and allocate resources and provide an interface for the user. Go on then, turn on that computer and we'll see what happens. An OS is one of the first programs that runs when a computer is turned on. Most programs start the same way. The computer issues lines of code as commands to prepare all the important elements, like the screen and the network. The operating system holds the collection of all the common commands and segments them, rather like putting them into a library, from which the other regular programs can borrow codes.
So in this video, you are clearly know how the OS can perform different kinds of tasks and what is the purpose of this operating system, right? So next one is what are the different operating systems are presented. Actually, there are different types of OS are there. The first one is batch operating system. Second one is distributed operating system. Third one is a time sharing operating system. The fourth one is multi-programmed operating system. The next one is the real-time operating system. So these are the different types of operating system. In next slide, you have to see the real-time operating system. That means real life. That means we are seeing some real life OSs. So how the OSs are there and which one support multi-user and single user and which one supports multitasking and single tasking, all these things. Okay. So this is the case here. So these are the examples. So Unix operating system, DOS, Mac OS, MS Windows, Linux, Palm OS, or Packet PC. The Unix operating system supports multi-user environment and can perform multiple tasking. In case of DOS, supports single user environment and it can perform only single task at a time. In case of Mac OS, it supports a single user and performs multitasking. Same as the Windows also, we have to use a single user and multitasking operation. But in case of Linux, it supports multiple users environment and can perform multiple tasking. In case of a Palm OS or Packet PC, it supports only single user and multitasking. Now, the main difference between these operating systems are your user interface. Actually, there are different types of interface. Command line is the interface and a graphical user interface. So which one is very convenient to use means actually a graphical user interface is a very convenient one for each and every one. Why? Because with the help of this icon, we can clearly know what we have to do. What is the notepad, what is wordpad, and how we have to click the button. All these things we have to clearly know with the help of graphical user interface. But in case of command line interface, each and everything should be in the form of a command prompt. Okay, so already we are familiar with the Linux Ubuntu in our lab systems, right? So in the Linux Ubuntu system, so first of all, if you want to work with Ubuntu operating system, you have to know about you have to know the knowledge of what is command prompt and what are the different commands we have to perform inside the command prompt. That means in Linux operating system, all these things. Okay, so here the Unix and Linux support the network operating system. The remaining all are support the, that means remaining are DOS, Mac OS, and MS Windows support the desktop operating system. The Palm OS support the mobile operating system. Next one is what is a real-time system? The name itself is saying there's a real time. That means depending upon the time constraints, we can perform the operations inside the processor. So here the data is a real-time system is used in the case when rigid time requirements have been placed on the operation of a processor. It contains well-defined and fixed time constraints. That means what are the best example for real-time system means a radar system, a weapon firing control system, digital watch, traffic controlling. All these things should be performed with the help of this real-time system only. Next one is what is a socket? So what is the purpose of this socket? A socket is used to make the connection between two applications. Here the applications means these are two devices. This is a device one and device two. So I want to communicate from these devices. So first of all, you have to create a socket between. That means we have to make the connection between the first device to second device. And this thing is called as sockets. Sockets is also called as endpoints. Okay, endpoints of the connection are called as sockets. This connection is called as a logical connection, not a physical connection. This is a logical connection. Next one is what is the kernel? Before going to kernel, so first of all, I want to give one best example. So what is the best example means? Every person, that means every human being should contains heart, right? What is the purpose of heart? Which provide the main functionality to the human being, right? So not only human being, for animals also, the heart is very, very important one. Without having the heart, we cannot perform a single operation or single functionality of the program, right? In the same fashion, the OS, that means the kernel is the heart and core of the operating system. That means without having the kernel, the OS cannot perform a single task. Okay, so here kernel is the core and the most important part of a computer operating system, which provides the basic services for all parts of the OS. That means it provides the main services. Okay, in this diagram, we have to see, so applications, that means the applications are given by the users. These application programs will carry forward the kernel. The kernel can identify where we have to transfer the data, whether we have to send the data to CPU, or whether we have to send data to memory or either devices. So after perform the task, the control information will carry forward to the applications. So this is the purpose of a kernel. Next one is, what is monolithic kernel? Mono means single. So monolithic kernel is a kernel which includes all operating system code, is in single executable image. That means within single kernel, we have to execute different kinds of tasks. Okay, so this is the best example. So user space, this user space contains application programs and library programs. Within the kernel space, you have to execute file systems, inter-process communication, IO and device management, fundamental process management. All these tasks can be performed within a single kernel space. Okay, that is the main in case of monolithic kernel. After performing this one, or after identifying information, the data will carry forward to the hardware. Okay, next one is, what is the difference between a microkernel and a macro kernel? Microkernel is the kernel which runs minimal performance affecting services for operating system. That means we have to execute multiple operations or multiple process within the kernel. Okay, so in microkernel operating system, all other operations are performed by processor. What is macro kernel? Macro kernel is the combination of micro and monolithic kernel. So first of all, you have to know the basic difference between micro and monolithic. So monolithic means single kernel. Within a single kernel space, you have to execute the multiple process. But in micro kernel point of view, user space which contains application programs, libraries, file system, process server, pages, drivers, and different kinds of information. All this information should be parallelly executed inside the macro kernel of the processor. So we have to execute file system, process server, pages, drivers, and different kinds of information. So parallelly we can perform different operations. So this is the case of a monolithic kernel and a micro kernel. Next one is, what is BIOS? The BIOS full form is a basic input output system. So what is the purpose of BIOS means the built-in software that determines what a computer can do without accessing programs from a disk. That means without taking data from the disk, how the system can control data. So with the help of BIOS, we can control the keyboard, display screen, disk drives, and a number of miscellaneous functions which is presented inside our PC or desktop. Okay, so this is the concept of BIOS. Next one is, what is a distributed system? The name itself is called distributed system. System means the number of devices are connected in different locations. So here, how the network is there. The network we maybe use LAN, local area network, or WAN, wide area network, or MAN, metropolitan area network. With the help of this connection, we have to communicate with one another, and we have to share the resources between the different devices. So this is the best example. Here the system 1, system 2, system 3, and system 4. System 1 is having its own processor and memory. System 2 is having its own processor and memory. System 3 is having its own processor and memory. And system 4 is also having its own memory and processor. So all these devices are connected with one another with the help of this communication link. So with the help of this communication link, we have to send and receive the messages. At the same time, you have to share the resources between the different devices. Okay. Next one is, what is system call? So system call works as a mediator or interface between user program and the services provided by the operating system like OS. So what is the purpose of OS? OS is an interface between the user and the hardware. In the same fashion, system call is the intermediate or interface between the user program and the services provided by the operating system. So for example, This is the system call interface. So first of all, the user has given some information. That information will carry forward to system call interface. This system call interface identifies where we have to transfer the control. So automatically send the data to the kernel mode, and this kernel mode, that means inside the operating system we have to perform the operation. After performing the operation, the return stream will carry forward to system call interface, and this data will carry forward to your exact destination user. So this is the operation can be done in